the Chief Guest, Mr. Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary to His Excellency the President, the Guest of Honor, Mr. Gotabe Rajapaksa, Secretary to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, Mr. Karunathilaka Amunugama, Secretary to the Ministry of External Affairs, Member of Parliament, Leader of the Janata Party, India, Dr. Subramanian Swamy, Excellencies, Chief of Defence Staff, General Jagat Jayasuriya, Commander of the Navy, Vice Admiral Jayanath Columbage, Commander of the Air Force, Air Marshal Harsha Abevikrama, Director, Civil Defence Force, Rear Admiral Anand Piris, past service commanders, guest speakers, distinguished delegates from home and abroad, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everyone. Your presence with us today is inspiring and sets the stage for what I believe for an unforgettable learning and interactive experience. As the commander of the Sri Lanka Army and the host of this important annual event, I am honored and privileged to welcome all of you to Defence Seminar 2013. Under the theme Post-Conflict Sri Lanka, Challenges and Regional Stability, I consider it a privilege to continue the Defence Seminar tradition. The brainchild of Secretary Defence, which was made a reality by former Commander of the Army, now the Chief of Defence Staff. Ladies and gentlemen, guided by the vision to be the wonder of Asia, our nation is steadily emerging from the chaos of more than 3 decades of violent conflict, articulated through separatism and terrorism, which was effectively defeated thanks to the strong political leadership of His Excellency the President and the cohesive military strategy devised and implemented by Secretary to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, Mr. Gotabe Rajapaksa. Our nation, as a result, has gained space to breathe and restart the much-wanted development process. A dedicated and accelerated approach to post-conflict recovery through the judicious application of 5 Rs, namely rehabilitation, reconstruction, resettlement, reintegration and reconciliation by the government, has enabled the rapid transformation from the pre-conflict emergency phase to a development-oriented phase just in 4 years. As we progress in rebuilding our nation with greater vigor and ambition, challenges of a different kind have surfaced and are emerging, for which more attention should be paid in terms of national security. Being a nation that follows the Buddhist perception of ahimsa, a doctrine advocating that all forms of life are sacred and urging non-violence towards any living being, our innocence was exploited by the extremist organization, the LTTE, and we paid the price for not being prepared nationally, an error we will never repeat. Although threats of the traditional nature have subsided, the violence no longer exists. Non-traditional threats of a new breed are just over the horizon. Attempts to impose political, social, and economic systems inappropriate and unhealthy to our national interest and the way of life are among some of the more recent challenges we are faced with. An active group of Tamil extremists domiciled abroad, still pursuing a separatist agenda, remain a clear and potential danger, which the security apparatus and the entire nation are well aware as a nation's grievances are addressed. Gaps of uncertainty between the parties to the conflict bridged by the government amidst sustainable peace that has dawned being enjoyed by the nation. Sustainable peace thus achieved has contributed to national security, stability, and overall development. As we all know, there could never be development without security, vice versa. Employment of the army in the nation's development efforts has added impetus to the nation building. The organizational skill, manpower, and the objective approach of the army has acted as a capacity multiplier for government institutions undertaking development projects. This has been the case with many a nation which has experienced similar situations. However, it is sad to note that the use of such valuable resource for development of Sri Lanka is unfortunately defined as militarization by some interested external elements. As a nation, we would be constantly on guard to identify and deal with threats of this nature, specifically those which aim at subverting the minds of the populace at large. External and internal non-state actors with common agendas designed to separate the people from the popular government are among some of the threat perceptions in the making. Protecting the hearts and minds of the populace from such designs and building the overall resilience of the nation to face the same will be of paramount importance to national security. Sri Lanka's defeat of terrorism and the subsequent security dividends naturally permeate through the region, adding to the much needed stability. That is a critical requirement in view of the fact that a good part of the world's energy requirements pass through sea lanes just a few nautical miles away from our country. The northern part of Sri Lanka under the LTTE would have had disastrous effects on the use of these lanes and pose a direct threat to the commerce of the region in particular and the whole of Asia in general. Ladies and gentlemen, with Defense Seminar 2011, we shared our experience in defeating terrorism. 2012, we followed up with our post-conflict experience and the famous fires. Today, guided by the theme Post-Conflict Sri Lanka, Challenges and Regional Stability, we expand the discourse to include the sensitive aspects of nation building, reconciliation, and the effects of our post-conflict success on regional stability. Reconciliation, the transition from a divided past to a shared future, will be dealt in depth by the Secretary to His Excellency the President, whom I believe is the best authority on the subject. Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged by the presence of some of the finest and eminent local and foreign participants on contemporary subjects to be discussed in the next few days. It is with immense pleasure that we welcome our special guest and friend from India, leader of the Janata Party of India, Dr. Subramanian Sami. We are also fortunate to have with us eminent government officials who, at the sharp end of policy making, have played and are playing lead roles in shaping the future of this nation. I welcome Mr. Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary to His Excellency the President, a central figure in designing and overseeing the implementation of nation's quest to be the wonder of Asia. And Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the Secretary to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, the architect of the defeat of terrorism in the country, and now the driving force in the regeneration of urban centers of the country. The beauty of our cities, including Colombo, testifies to the magnitude of work done. Sir, your presence inspires and honors this forum. I welcome Mr. Karunatilaka Amunugama, Secretary to the Ministry of External Affairs, who plays an important role in the implementation of our foreign policy. I welcome Your Excellencies, High Commissioners, and Ambassadors. I am pleased to welcome General Jagat Jayasuriya, the Chief of Defence Staff, Vice Admiral Jayanath Kolambage, the Commander of the Navy, and Air Marshal Harsha Abevikrama, Commander of the Air Force. Rear Admiral Ananda Piris, Director General Civil Defence Force, and past service commanders whose presence at this forum reminds us of your continuing concern and commitment to the cause of the defence services. I am particularly pleased to have been able to bring together a host of prominent foreign speakers from the region and outside, whose presence with us here today will bring diverse and interesting perceptions to the thought-provoking theme. Let me also welcome Professor Rohan Gunaratna, Mr. Mohan Samarnayake, the Chairman of Sri Lanka Rupawahini Corporation, Mr. Arun Tambumuttu, Mr. Ajit Rohana Kolonni, Lieutenant General Mullah Fashli Akbar, Senior Colonel Su Hui, and Mr. Jagsin Shetty, Mr. N. Satyamurthy, Mr. Sohail Amin, the retired ambassador, and Professor Joachim Kraus, Dr. Clive Vincent Jacking, and also Senior Colonel Nguyen Hong. Last but not least, I welcome all delegates and participants from home and abroad. Your partnership in this event today bears testimony to the special relationships that exist between our nations and the common interest we pursue. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce the keynote speaker, the architect of the defeat of terrorism in Sri Lanka and the true patriot of Mother Lanka, Secretary to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa led the military efforts which resulted in the comprehensive defeat of the LTTE, a separatist with an strategist with an enormous grasp of employing military power. He judiciously blended all agencies and capabilities of the government into a single effort which resulted in the great victory over terrorism. Fearless and undeterred, he survived a suicide attack by the LTTE to lead the military to what is considered an achievement of historic proportion. The synchronized and productive engagement of the military in the post-conflict recovery of the North and East is an initiative only he could claim. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has reinvented the military role in nation building by judiciously applying the same to enhance capacity of government institutions and agencies engaged in development. The regeneration of urban areas and cities under his purview has created an enormous upsurge in urban living standards. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa assumed duties as Secretary, Ministry of Defence and Urban Development on 25th November 2005. Before his appointment, he was the Unix System Administrator of Loyola Law School in Los Angeles, USA. A career soldier, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa joined the Sri Lanka Army in 1971, spent 20 years of service and held the appointment of Deputy Commandant of Sir John Kotalawala Defence University in 1991, and as a Lieutenant Colonel was the coordinating officer of Valioya area from 1990 to 1991. Prior to that, he was the coordinating officer of Matale district and the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion Gajaba Regiment from 1989 to 1990. He has also held numerous other appointments in the Sri Lanka Army, such as instructor, adjutant, and staff officer to the operations officer commanding contingents. During his military career, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has been awarded the President's Commendation Letter by former President J.R. Jayawardena and Medals of Valor in combat such as Rana Vikrama Padakkama and Rana Sura Padakkama on 2 occasions. He has also received a commendation from the Commander of the Army for his bravery in action. He has commanded many anti-terrorist operations in the north and east in different capacities. Among them was his command of the 1st Battalion, the Gajaba Regiment, in the important Vadamarachi operation in 1987 and Operation Trividavale in 1990 respectively, to rescue Jaffna Peninsula and Jaffna Fort from terrorist control. Hailing from the village of Veerakatiya in the south of Sri Lanka, he had his education at the respected educational institution Ananda College, Colombo. He completed his basic officer cadet training at the prestigious military academy Diyathalawa and proceeded to Pakistan to complete a young officer's course in Rawalpindi and later the mid-career course at Quetta. He has also undergone advanced training in counter-insurgency and jungle warfare in Assam, India. Later in his career, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa graduated on advanced infantry training from Infantry School, Fort Benning, USA. As a staff officer, Mr. Rajapaksa completed his staff course at the Defence Services Staff College in Wellington, India in 1983. He obtained his master's degree on defense services from the Defense Studies from the University of Madras in 1983. He has also obtained a postgraduate degree in Information Technology from the University of Colombo in 1992. Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his wife Ayoma are blessed with a son. He is the brother of His Excellency the President Mahinda Rajapaksa and the son of parliamentarian and former Deputy Speaker of Parliament, the late Mr. D.A. Rajapaksa. Ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully invite Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Secretary to the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, to deliver the keynote address. Sir, over to you.